Robyn Cadwallader, welcome to Booktopia and congratulations on your stunning debut novel, The Anchoress.
Thank you, Caroline. It's lovely to be here.
So, Robyn, what gave you the idea for Sarah's story and for creating a story around the idea of an anchoress, a woman who walls herself away from the world, devoting her life to spiritual contemplation?
Well, I didn't have the idea, it didn't come out of nowhere. I was doing my PhD on the story of St. Margaret of Antioch, the saint's life, about the woman who is swallowed by a dragon and bursts out the dragon's back, proclaims herself a hero. And as I was researching that, I was doing the 13th century version, because there are lots of versions. And I was looking at the 13th century version, and I discovered that it was bound with several other stories and a rule of life for anchoresses. And I had never heard of an anchoress. Maybe I had because of Julian, but I didn't really know much about them. And I started to read. I thought, why are they giving this story to these women? And I read some detail that they were, the enclosure ceremony, they were read the burial rites, they were put in the cell. Sometimes a grave was dug for them in the cell. The door was sometimes bricked up, nailed up, and they vowed to stay there. 2 small windows that they were not to look out, and one tiny little squint, they called it, into the church. All very severe, very extreme. And my first reaction was, well, this is awful, this is terrible, and it's wrong. It's just entirely life-denying. But I kept reading in that kind of horrified, fascinated way you do about something like that. And the more I read, and the more I thought about, these are women in the Middle Ages who have limited prospects, particularly upper-class women were expected to become nuns or to marry. And so there weren't a lot of options. And I realised that it was a bit arrogant for me to sit in my comfortable space and say this was wrong. So I kept reading and thinking, and I started to think about the inside of this cell, the woman in the cell, and I just imagined myself into that space. And I was most interested in what's the experience of being in there. What are her motivations for being there in the first place? And I am sure that none of our motivations are ever pure and simple.
I know, I saw on your blog that you've done research which involved travelling to go and look at an anchor hold, so that you've seen for yourself what this space would look like. So just give us an idea of the dimensions that she's confined in and of what she's got in there. So she's got a bed?
She's got a bed, a desk, an altar. And that's all of these I have gleaned from the Anchoress, which was a rule that was given to these anchoresses. So those things are mentioned in that rule, but not much else.
And the space, how tiny is it? Because there was some variation.
There was variation. Some one that I had been to, I think there is that what they think there's a chapel, a little oratory, and a small garden, and the living space for the anchoress and her maids. Some of them were quite small, and I do know that one woman, Christina of Markiot, she followed a holy man and asked to be near him as an anchoress, and she was in a space where she couldn't actually properly sit down, and they let her out at night, but she stayed in there all day. So the space is varied, but the research is suggesting that probably 12 feet by 12 feet, which is what, 4 metres, roughly 4 metres by 4 metres.
Now, it's interesting that you cite an example there of an anchoress who was close to a holy man, because one of the most intriguing dynamics in your book is that Sarah, in fact, does interact with her maid and with the community and with her confessor.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about the character of the confessor.
Confessor. Ranulph. Ranulph is the reluctant confessor. He's a scribe at a local priory, and his aim is to build the business of copying manuscripts for books of hours and books of prayers for the local people. And he's very committed to the written word. He's very committed to ideas.
He's very earnest.
He is very earnest. I love Ranulph. I think he's great. But, you know, I've known him a long time. He is then really told he must take over becoming confessor for this woman. And it's the last thing he wants to do. He really just wants to be left alone in his very small scriptorium to copy and to think. But he has to walk every week, once a week, to go and visit Sarah, the Anchoress. And so he decides he doesn't know much about women, he doesn't know much about what she needs, but confession will do. He'll go, he'll say, make your confession, he'll give her absolution, a bit of penance, and then he will leave. Now that's not what Sarah expects, because she's had a lovely avuncular confessor who becomes too sick to look after her. So she expects more, and so there is this kind of standoff between the two of them. They don't see each other, and for Sarah, all Ranulph is a voice, a very dull, dry kind of voice. And for Ranulph, Sarah is disturbing. Her voice is, it's a woman. And for a man in a monastery, that's you know, something different.
And she has strong opinions.
Yes.
And she challenges him.
She challenges him. As time goes by, their relationship becomes really one of the most important things for both of them. Their reactions to each other are the catalyst for them to shift and grow. And when I was writing Ranulph, I knew that I actually really wanted him to change, but as I was writing through the book, I knew he actually mustn't change, because he wouldn't. This is how he would be. And there was one occasion where I sat down to write, and Sarah has to admit something to Ranulph. And I thought, well, she will have to be apologetic. She will have to be, you know, eat humble pie.
Contrite.
Yes. And I started to write, and she just got angry with him. And I finished writing this scene, and I know this is what people say, and you doubt whether it actually is really what happened. But I finished the scene, and I thought, oh, I didn't expect that to happen. Well, and then I thought, of course, that's what she would do. She would be angry, and Ranulph would be completely taken aback. And then, as I wrote on, as the story developed, there comes a point where Ranulph shifts, and I finished writing that, and I just burst into tears. and I thought that must have been such a moving scene. And I thought, well, I think it was because I had held back for so long, or Ranulph had actually held back from changing and from finally giving in to what he was being drawn towards. And the moment, and it's not a spectacular change, but it's so significant, and it was such a relief. I was so relieved to write it.
Well, you've given us a really, really memorable character and an extraordinary setting. Thank you so much, Robyn Cadwallader.
Thank you. It's been lovely to talk to you.